Welcome to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast, where today's top influencers and entrepreneurs on the rise share empowering stories and ninja tips to become the fuel that ignites a positive change in your life. Our guests don't simply coast through life. They don't let difficult situations stop them. They set big goals, keep their eyes on the prize, and they're joining us today to share insider secrets you can use right now to step into your power and live your purpose. Now, here's your host, Christy Ruffino.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast. This is Christy Ruffino, the host of the show, and today I'm excited to be introducing to you Patricia Stepler. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you for inviting me onto your show. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. You're a new friend or a new business acquaintance, and we've been hanging around in a community, and I really love what I see that you're up to, how you're showing up in that space. And then right away I thought, well, heck, I've got to get her on my show. So here we are.
Yes. I love the title of your show. It's
Yes.
just perfect.
Yeah. You know what? Honestly, I love that you brought that up because the title can kind of be polarizing because some people either love it or they don't. They think, well, I'm not mediocre. Well, of course, that's the whole point is
Right.
How can we kind of break the status quo and do something a little bit above and beyond? Because a lot of people just coast through life and we're all like
Absolutely.
rock stars, right? We're making it happen and we want to help other people rise up to do amazing things in the world. And
Exactly.
yeah, and it all starts with our story, right? Our story is what is catapulting us on our journey. But I'll get to that in a moment because I want to introduce you. So Patricia Stepler is the only mindset success coach who utilizes an innovative, proven 3-step system for business leaders around the world who want to accomplish their dreams and live the lifestyle they choose at a time when most leaders allow the world to dictate what they can accomplish. Patricia has studied human potential and has been personally mentored by multiple coaches, including the late, great Bob Proctor. She exemplifies understanding in personalities and leadership skills needed. Oh, I think I said that wrong. She exemplifies understanding in personalities and leadership skills needed to successfully transform businesses so those businesses have the ability to double or triple their bottom line in a year. Wow. That's a mouthful, and that's a great big promise, Patricia.
Yes. And if people follow what I teach them and they do what I tell them to do, they can accomplish that.
Great. Well, we're going to get to that in the second segment. I know you've got some great ninja tips to share, but before we get there, I want to learn a little bit about your story. Why are you so passionate about this? How did you get here?
Well, that is kind of an interesting story. So how I got here was really through my son. Had it not been my son, I probably would not be doing this. But he proved to me something that I sort of knew, but hadn't figured out. So anyway, my whole adult life, I studied personal development. And like so many other people that study personal development, they don't necessarily have the success that they want to have. And so here comes my son. When he's 12 years old, he tells me, my oldest daughter's in college at this time. My second daughter's getting ready to go to college. And he tells me, Mom, you don't need to worry about putting me through college because I'm going to get a scholarship. And of course, knowing that, I didn't want to discourage him, I didn't say anything. And I just, kind of gave him a hug and thanked him. And I said, so how are you going to get this scholarship? He says, well, I want to be a collegiate athlete. Well, immediately I'm thinking, okay, that's an uphill battle. And especially since you have to understand some of the health issues that he had, his major one being that he was a type 1 diabetic. So he always had to adjust his insulin. And I said, well, what sport are you going to play? Because at the time he played football and basketball and baseball. And he said, I don't know yet. Okay, that's fair. So anyhow, he kept telling me this just over and over for the next 6 years that he was getting this scholarship. And to be honest, I did not believe him because I knew how difficult it was, especially when he chose baseball. So if you're not aware, baseball is very difficult to get a scholarship in because they don't have the money that football and basketball have. And so he chooses the one sport where he has the least opportunity.
The hardest path, right?
Exactly. And so we would go to these showcases and summer events, and, college coaches would be very honest, and they'd say to the parents, if you think your kid's going to get a scholarship, forget it. Because unless you were maybe a really good catcher or a pitcher, chances are, you weren't going to get much. And then there was a limited amount, even in some schools, there's a limited amount of scholarships. So again, I never discouraged him. I never told him what I was hearing, as the parent, and just let him go on and believe that he was going to get the scholarship. So he chose a local travel team that he heard good things about and thought he'd get the scholarship. And they told him, hey, if you do a really good job for us playing in the fall, then you will be on our summer team. He did a really good job playing for them in the fall, and came time for tryouts for the summer team, and he did not make it. And he was devastated because, this was his junior year, and he just thought he had lost, all that time he had believed he was getting a scholarship. And so I said to him, sometimes when, a door gets shut, a window gets opened. So let's look. So we found another team. And at the time, he was a little discouraged about that, but they had one opening left because their team was pretty much picked, but they had one opening, and that position was for an outfielder. And that's the position my son played. Like, what are the odds?
Wow. Yeah.
So anyhow, he plays on this team. And a school in Georgia, we live in Pennsylvania, and a school in Georgia came to a camp they were doing because they had connections with the people that ran this travel team. And they were interested in my son. And so we started looking it up. And anyhow, they started to recruit him. And we went down and visited and found out that from going to the admissions office that he could probably get 1/3 to 1/2 of a scholarship. And so, we still kept looking. He was still, not sure. But finally, he decided to go to that school. So when his scholarship letter came in the mail, we were just getting ready to go get something to eat. And he, looked at this envelope and he held it in his hands and he said, Mom, he said, wouldn't this be funny if it was a full scholarship? And I said, now wait, Danny, they said 1/3 to 1/2. Whatever you get, that's great. He opens it up. We see the amount and we both just scream and hug each other because it was a full scholarship.
Wow.
I was like, it should not have happened. There was no reason it should have, that should have transpired. And at that very moment, I knew he had caused that, but I did not know how he did it. And so I knew enough about personal development, but at that moment, I knew I was missing something huge because as special as I think my son is, I know that, if one person can do something, anybody can do something. So that started my journey. And, I started to search for the answers because I knew the answers were out there. And that's when I stumbled upon Bob Proctor. I'd heard his name up and, previously, but we had never, I'd never been to a conference or convention where he spoke. And immediately when I heard him talk, and it was, on the computer, I'm like, this is the guy that knows the answers that I'm seeking. And so very quickly, I started to get involved with his organization. I eventually became certified through them. And he was a personal coach of mine for a year. And that was an experience. And, so it was like, when you're ready, and it's not that maybe I didn't hear these things before, but when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And that is just so true.
Wow. That's a great story. And how you got there by just witnessing your son's journey.
Yes.
I love that. And then you get to mentor or coach with Bob Proctor. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
To be able to develop a relationship with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that was an incredible story. If you don't mind, hang tight because we're going to take a quick break and then You're going to share some amazing steps to live a bigger life. So hang tight, everybody. Patricia and I will be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by the Overcoming Mediocrity Project. Are you ready to share your story in a life-changing book with other success-driven women? Then what if you could use that book to get speaking gigs, podcast interviews, and possibly a new client or two? Wouldn't that be great? Well, watch out, chicken soup. Here comes Overcoming Mediocrity. Our proven system can transform your struggle story into a powerful signature message and then as one chapter in an Amazon best-selling book. Our process is simple and economical, and it will bring a lot of eyeballs on you, your business, and your big message to the world. We welcome you to apply to join our project. Just visit us at overcomingmediocrity.org and click on the apply button at the top of the page. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, everybody, to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast. This is Christy and Patricia, and we are going to talk about the steps that you can take to live a bigger life. So before we get there, Patricia, I want to kind of understand who is the type of person that you work with? What is your ideal client?
So I really enjoy working with business people and entrepreneurs, mainly because you can readily see that increase, in their bottom line, in their revenues, and their income, whatever they're looking for. It's so easy to see.
Tangible.
And yeah. So those are my favorite people to work with because you can see the results. And, I've taken businesses where they've doubled every year, year after year, and they just keep growing to the point where they just can't, even when they're not trying to grow, they're still growing. And it's just very exciting to see that happen.
Yeah, great. And can you share like maybe one little success story before we dive into these tips? Because that will really help, I think, bring it all together on how, what kind of results our audience can expect when they are able to take advantage of some of these ninja tips that you're going to share.
Yes. So I started working with a small construction company, and I will say construction, they were more like handyman at that point, doing small, jobs here and there. And they were earning about 180,000, except they weren't earning anything because that was all going to pay their employees.
Yeah, it was like gross,
expenses.
Right? Yeah.
So they were really,
they're the last ones to get paid, right?
Exactly.
In
fact, they were like, siphoning off her, her husband's income to help pay for things, how that goes.
Yeah.
So anyway, they started to work with me, and we first had to kind of clean house and, reorganize their business and so on. But after that first year, they had doubled their income.
Wow.
Or doubled their revenue. And so, it was really great. And so then the next year it was like, okay, now let's take that, around 300,000-400,000 and can we go further? And so they went over $1 million. And then they, eventually it got to a point where they were no longer running their business out of their dining room. They were able to purchase a showroom. Wow. And they were able to, remodel this showroom and not take on any debt. And so they just kept growing and growing. And this year, it looks like they'll probably go over 10 million, and they're not even trying anymore. I mean, things just come to them. And, they really were a little resistant at first to what I was saying, but as soon as they really believed what I was telling them to do, and they started to see the results, they just pretty much jumped all in.
Yeah. It is hard for anybody or most people to make changes, but when you see the fruits of that labor start to come together, and it looks like, for this particular business, they not only saw it, but they kept leaning into it, right? Leaning into the change to continue to grow and not just, rest on their laurels, right? Let's just keep growing. Wow.
Well, and so they're the company that they really did not look to grow this year. They wanted to just kind of stay steady. And they shared with me that in the first 2 months of the year, they had doubled what they had done in the first 2
Wow.
months of last year. And so they're not even trying to grow. But once you start that snowball going, you can't stop it.
Wow. Wow. That's a great testimony. So, I have some questions for you as far as mindset goes, because I know mindset is a huge part of any successful endeavor, right? Mindset has to come before a skill set. And so, how does somebody develop that bigger mindset?
Okay, so for a lot of it, it's a matter of making some shifts in your thinking. So we're all, we're all programmed. And so much of that programming started when we were very young. And so we have these habits that we do, or habitual thought patterns that don't really serve us well. So we have to figure out which of those thought patterns, like, sometimes people think, well, who do you think you are that you can accomplish that? And we start to doubt ourselves instead of believing. And, the only limitations we have are the ones that we decide.
Yes.
And so it's a matter of really shifting our habitual thoughts. And once you can start doing that and catch yourself when you're drawing in the negativity or drawing in the thing that you don't want. So for instance, if you keep dwelling on the fact that your bank account's empty, then that's what you're focused on, an empty bank account, and you will continue to have an empty bank account.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to start focusing on what you really want and start seeing yourself having already achieved it. And that's sometimes very difficult for people to be able to see what I call the truth when it's not the reality at the moment. And, that's something that I got from Wallace D. Wattles in his book, The Science of Getting Rich.
Yes.
That, enable to see that truth of what it is that you desire, because you can really have anything within reason that you want in life. You just have to be able to see it and see yourself having it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know I have studied under, like, read books, I should say. I haven't worked with, like you have with Bob Proctor, but I've read so many of these iconic books about mindset, and it's huge, right? It's been a huge shift for me in being able to just recognize it. That's the first step, right? But then changing some of those thought patterns and having the skills and the tools to make that happen. But what happens when we go and start sliding back into the old ways? Like, is there something we can do to, like, shift back into that?
So awareness is everything. So the first thing is to be aware that you're shifting back.
Yes.
And that's not uncommon, because those habitual thought patterns are strong. And, we call them paradigms. They will pull you back because they're trying to protect you. And so it is, we talk about the comfort zone. That's a true thing, and that's what your paradigms are. They're trying to keep you in that comfort zone so that you don't get hurt or harmed. The problem is, if you stay in that comfort zone, you're also not going to grow and expand and change.
Right.
So you have to understand that they are pulling you back. So it is a constant battle. And everybody has it. I'll never forget the one consultant training I went to with Bob Proctor, and he had gotten a new computer. I mean, something kind of as simple as a new computer. And he was having trouble with this working and so on. And he says, I don't like change. Well, you could have just seen about everybody's jaw drop, of the consultants there, because of all people, Bob Proctor, and he doesn't like change. He said, nobody likes change. He says, I'm no different than anybody else. And so even though he knew, he needed to use this new computer, it was a change, and he was having trouble with it. And so we have to realize that those patterns are there, and they are strong. And so it is a constant battle to keep, working towards what you want. But at some point, when the desire gets big enough for what you want, your goal's big enough, and the desire's there, and you've shifted it into your subconscious, where you can build that new paradigm there, then you can start to achieve it.
So what is the best way to start reprogram? We're basically reprogramming the computer of our mind. And what is the best way to do that?
Well, first thing you really need to do is to have a big enough goal that excites you. A lot of times people will set a goal that they think they can achieve, but there's not a lot of excitement in that. So you really have to set something that, you don't necessarily know how to do. And that's okay. You don't have to know all the steps. Just like my son did not know the steps that was going to take him to get a scholarship. He just set the goal and then allowed things to fall into place. And so we really have to focus on the good that we desire and just believe it's going to happen. And you can't have that doubts, getting in your way. And then the other thing, you really have to become the person that you need to be. And that's a tough thing too, because the person you are today has gotten you to the success that you have today. That person is not the person that will get you to that quantum leap that you need to make or that you want to make.
That is
and
so true.
So you've got to be the person first, because you can't outperform the image you hold of yourself. So if you have this desire to have $1 million, but you see yourself as a $50,000 person, there's a big gap there. And until you start to see yourself deserving and doing the things that you would do, if you had a business that would earn $1 million, you'll stay where you are, because you have to become the person first.
So how does one do that?
Well, one of the easiest things I think you can do is to write a story. Write a story of who you want to be, and write it in detail. Have what kind of things are you going to do? If you're earning $1 million and you're going from 50,000 to $1 million, what kind of things would you do differently? Where would you live? Describe your house. What vehicle would you drive? What vacations would you take? Would you go camping or would you stay in 5-star hotels? What things will you do differently? And then what kind of people are going to be in your life at that point? It's not all about the things. It's about, the experiences that you're going to have and the people that you would draw into your life also. And so really write that out in detail and then read it periodically and keep adding to it. And as you do that, you're visualizing it. And that's the first step, is to create that image of what it is that you want and then go from there.
Yeah, I always like to say, and I've been saying it a lot recently, is I like to be the smallest person in the room, because that is me getting out of my comfort zone to be around big people, big players, people that are doing amazing things in the world, making huge, revenue, and have companies that I can't even fathom. But it's expanding my context, which is allowing me to get into that next place of my business and my life journey.
Yes.
It's uncomfortable, but that's okay.
Yes.
Right? When we're coasting through life, even though it may be comfortable, I think all of us, and we all have different motivations, right? Everybody has a different drive. Not everybody is as ambitious as the next. But I believe as in our human nature, we know innately that we were created for some sort of purpose. And if we're not fulfilling that, and we're just kind of, waking up every day and going to sleep and waking up and not really living our potential, there's something nagging at us, right? There's something that,
right,
no matter who we are, we feel that, ooh, one of these days I'm going to do this, right? How many people have had that one day, played that someday one day game? Someday one day game. Yeah. So someday one day I'm going to do that. But that's just that little voice inside of you saying that there's something more. And I love this.
One thing that Bob Proctor always said was, so often people tiptoe through life trying to make it safely from birth to death. And when their heart stops beating, it's just a mere formality. And that's just such a sad thought. And basically what you're saying there is that, so many people they don't live their life like they could because they've given up on themselves. And that's the saddest thing in the world, and I always tell my kids, if you change your goal, that's fine. Just don't live with regrets. Don't get
Correct.
to some point in your life and say, if only I'd have, you know,
Mm.
don't
Yeah.
want
And
to
it
do
doesn't
that.
have to be about money either. It's not
No, it
about
does
money.
not.
It's just about showing up, being who you were created to be, and making the impact in the world that we should, right? I mean,
Right.
whatever legacy that you leave should be more than just the formality of tiptoeing through every day,
Right.
coasting along.
And sometimes our purpose change. I mean, for
Yes.
me,
Sometimes.
yeah.
Often.
So, I mean, early on, I felt like my purpose in life was to raise my 3 kids.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
to have them turn out to be valuable citizens of the world, you know? And I felt that was the biggest thing that I could do. And, you know, then once they were all, you know, once I became an empty nester, I was like, okay, now I need to find a new purpose.
Yep. Oh yeah. Our purpose, I think, will shift because whatever season we're in our life, that's what we need to focus on. And whatever our purpose is now, 20 years ago, we were not equipped to do this. And so It's all a part of the journey. Mm-hmm. And everything that we've gone through. And that's what I love about our Overcoming Mediocrity books is our women that share their stories, they're sharing them because they went through something pretty significant in their life. And then they want to share that to support other people. But what is the coolest thing for me is as they go through this process with me and go through the journey of sharing their story, it allows them and it opens them up to expand into their next bigger story, which is to me the best part of all of this. And, I love where you said to write our next story, because that allows us to visualize what that is.
Right.
Yeah. And
yeah, and if you can see it,
creating it. Yeah.
If you can see it in your mind, you can have it.
Yes.
Because everything's already created. So everything's already there.
Yeah.
So we just have to reach out and take that piece that we want. But so often we don't even realize it's there for us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. And if you can see somebody else with that or doing that or living that, why can't you?
Exactly.
So if it's out there, if somebody else is doing it, you sure as heck can. You just have to want it bad enough and do the hard work to make it happen.
Well, and the other thing we have to realize is that there's something in our minds that we believe other people can do things that we cannot. And why we think that way, I don't know. But we have to start to shift that and realize that if somebody else can do something, that means we can too.
Right. And then think about how many people look at us and say, oh, if only I could do that.
Right.
And so that's, right there is, I don't want to say humbling, but that is I'm sure everybody could look back and there's somebody in their life that they don't maybe know about it, but looks at them with some sort of awe and respect and wishes they could be in that position. And that is basically a telltale sign that why can't you do that with somebody else?
Right. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, all right, this has been so great. And I am excited to be, depending on when people are listening to this, I am going to be at an event that you're hosting, which is super exciting. But, if somebody listens to this recording in the first week or so after it drops, then they can connect with you or connect with me and we can get them access to that event. But we like to make sure that these shows are evergreen, meaning that anybody at any time can connect with our guest experts and be able to get some sort of support from them. And I know you have something amazing that you want to share with our audience. So would you like to talk a little bit about what that is?
I would. So I have a program that's called 30 Days to Better Me. And I sell it on my website, but I'm going to give it free to your audience and it'll be in the show notes. And what it is a short video, maybe 5 minutes to 10 minutes a day. And it'll give you some really good hints on things that you can do to start shifting your thinking to improve your life or to get to that goal that you really want. And, I even give you little exercises, and I just recently re-recorded it. So I'm very excited about it. I think it came out even better the second time around, because you know what? I wasn't the same person the second time I recorded it that I was the first person.
Yes.
So I have a lot more knowledge and information, and, so it's fairly a new recording that I've put together for you.
So 30 Days to a Better Me 2.0. We get the new and improved version.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, if you're listening, you can connect with Patricia just connect with her and get this amazing gift. The link for that will be, the link for that and everything will be in the show notes below. And if you heard anything that you thought to be interesting today from Patricia, please share it with somebody you know and love, because we always retain more by teaching others. And of course, if you like our podcast, please go to whatever platform you listen and subscribe to it. Give us a review and rate us, because the more support and love we get from our fans, our audience, the better chances we have of continuing to get some pretty incredible guests like Patricia here. Thank you, Patricia. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah. So thanks, everybody. And we will see you on the next show.
Thanks for listening to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams once they've learned the art of mastering their story. Mastering our stories is the key to everything we want in life. Our stories can either hold us back or they can propel us to new heights. We can choose. You can choose. Choose to overcome mediocrity with us. Let's achieve greatness together. To learn more, visit www.overcomingmediocrity.org. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.